What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, FightfulWrestling.com. MLW's Never Say Never. July 25th, New York, Queens, New York. We have the Caribbean champion against the national champion. National champion just happens to be Alex Hammerstone. But the Caribbean champion is Savio Vega, and I've got Alex here. Alex, is this a match that you ever actually expected to happen?
This is definitely unexpected. MLW has a tendency to bring people kind of unexpected, never before seen matches, but this is even a little more outside the realm than usual.
I mean, you've had this feud that's gone on with the Hart Foundation, so you've been in there with Brian Pillman's son, but now you've got somebody out of his father's era in Savio Vega that you're facing next week, and he's had a bit of a resurgence nationally lately with MLW, and I know he was in the J-Lit tournament recently. What are you expecting out of a Savio Vega in the ring, like compared to some of the younger guys that you're facing these days?
Well, the thing is, the younger cats, they've got speed, agility, they've got all these crazy type of aerial moves that are being innovated day in and day out. But at the end of the day, they're pretty easily put down and overpowered. Whereas something like Savio Vega, he's got a bag of tricks that maybe goes a little deeper than I am used to. So I guess you could say expect unexpected, but you don't really change your game plan. You just when you're me and I've been as dominant as I've been, kind of come in planning to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Do what got you to the dance to keep on dancing.
I know some people think this is kind of a little out of left field, Savio Vega and MLW, but there is at least a little bit of brief history here. He beat your buddy MJF in AIW. What was it, last month?
Well, I can't say that I even was aware of that, but that just gives me all the more motivation to do it for the dynasty.
So how are you approached with this match? Like, who's the person that comes to you and says, "Yep, we got you booked for New York. Savio Vega is the opponent"?
Well, I mean, a lot of the times that's the thing is, when you're in the position of holding a championship title, you're kind of in the position of bringing all comers, especially with the Openweight championship. It means I could be literally going up against anybody. There's not a weight limit on the belt. So if a contender comes in with, either someone who's worked their way up through the MLW ranks or someone like Savio Vega, whose, pedigree speaks for itself. So he kind of gets to cut in line, so to speak. Those matches, I don't really get I don't get to turn it down. I have to kind of take all comers, So a lot of times these matchups, I'm learning about them at the same time everyone else is when it's getting announced via the, the MLW webpage or the Twitter or whatever else it is.
So the national openweight title is relatively new. What are your goals with this championship as the first person to hold it, and what are you looking to accomplish with it?
I mean, my goals with this championship, pretty much run parallel to my goals with signing with MLW in the first place. There's a lot of guys get opportunities with companies, with TV deals or things like that, younger guys who just, are happy to be there, oh, this might be cool. Oh, I want to tell my friends I'm on TV, or, I'm going to make pretty good money. Cool, whatever. But when I signed that contract and, my mind went, okay, I'm going to be the face of MLW. I want this company on my back. I want to be a franchise player. I want a year from now, my name to be synonymous with MLW, and at the time it was eyes on the prize as far as going after that heavyweight championship. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. That's all I was focused on. And then this national openweight title got announced, and it's like you said, I'm the first person to ever hold it, so I'm going to kind of set the bar, set the standard of what this championship means. And so my goal is to make it the most sought-after championship in wrestling, the most must-see part of our program. I want it to be something that if that title is being defended, people want to watch that match. I want it to be a main event belt.
So you came into MLW, or at least started working in the ring there this year. How did that deal come about? You were one of those names on the independent circuit that a lot of people had their eyes on. What drew you to MLW, and how did that deal come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's those times in the industry when there gets to be a pool of guys that all kind of have that aura around them of like, man, I'm pretty sure everybody's, paying attention to them. Like, oh man, that guy's probably going to be somewhere, but it just hasn't happened yet. And obviously at the beginning of this year, in wrestling, with everything that happened and was announced, all the companies turned and started really going after who they wanted. And I can't say MLW was the only person or the only company talking to me, but what I can say is they seemed to have a very clear vision for me. And it wasn't that I was some prospect. It wasn't that I was some muscular guy that, hey, maybe you'll look good on our program, or maybe we could do something with you eventually. It was like, hey, we like what you bring to the table and we want to make you a part of this show. And that was what I wanted to hear, because being in wrestling as long as I have, it's good to be valued for what you bring to the table. It's not that a company was trying to scoop me up so no one else could. It was that they specifically saw something that they wanted to buy. And I think the relationship so far has been very beneficial on both sides.
And they didn't just bring you into the show. They put you in a major stable with Richard Holiday and a guy who has exploded in popularity in MJF. And it's not just MJF that's getting the big push. You're national openweight champion. You're, as far as I know, unbeaten in MLW. Were you expecting all of that when you agreed to come in with MLW?
I mean, I wasn't expecting anything necessarily handed to me, but I was expecting, I know what I'm able to bring to the table, so I knew that I was going to take every opportunity and capitalize on every opportunity, whether it's a promo, whether it's a video package, whether it's any time in the ring. I knew that I was going to show how tenacious I was. I was going to show how I wanted to get to the top. Obviously the dynasty was something that, the idea was there for it, but it could have easily been a flop. It could have easily been, very cheesy, but you have three guys who understand the concept of it, but all are bringing a very different flavor and a very different personality to it. And it's been, I think, naturally people can watch it and tell how much fun we're having with it, and it makes it fun to watch.
Speaking of fun, the Battle Riot I think it was a few months ago, it was WrestleMania weekend. That seems, when you have a Battle Royal with that many people in it, I think 39, 40 people, what's it like to work that, to get that sorted through, the process of planning that match and then going out and executing it?
I can't really pull back the curtain too much on that, but I can tell you that it's a whole different experience. It's very, very, very difficult to pull off well, and probably not as how do I say this, intricately developed as people might think. You have your personalities that are going to go out there and shine, and they know how to take the spot. Other than that, you hope the cards fall in the right places, and it's really a one-of-a-kind match, especially with the way MLW does it with the extra stipulations and the extra competitors.
So when you popped up in MLW, I know it happened around that time, I almost didn't recognize you, and all that happened was your hair was cut a little bit.
Yeah, the hair was cut, the ring gear was altered a little bit.
Yeah. And it's weird to think that can make such a drastic change, but I would associate you with the hair, and by the way of that, also the gear, I guess. What went into you deciding, hey, it's time to do that?
Being there's a couple of things that went into the decision, but obviously I was getting comparisons to certain other long-haired wrestlers, certain other wrestlers with H in their name. And, after a while you get so sick of hearing it, and you also get so sick of companies saying, hey, we'd like to put you on TV, but you look like this guy or that guy or whatever it is. So, the first decision was the hair coming off, but I've been playing with the idea of kind of radically changing up my look, changing up the way I present myself for a couple months. Basically, in 2018, I kind of was in a rut with wrestling where I just kind of felt like I was going out and playing the hits, and that's kind of like a reference to being in a band where, like,
Sure.
You don't have the inspiration to write new music. You're not really, like, passionately in love with what you're doing. You're just kind of playing the songs that the people are going to clap for, and it's going to keep getting you paid to do your gigs. And that's kind of where I had fallen into. So I took a step back and thought, like, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to show, how I wanted to present myself. And I took a huge gamble, cutting the hair, changing the gear, really changing things up, changing my music, changing a little bit the way I work in the ring, the way I talk on the mic. And it's kind of a nerve-wracking thing because you have this guaranteed, like, hey, this is working for now at this stage for sure. It's going to continually get me indie bookings, but I want to evolve, and that could either, make you or break you. And obviously for me, it's been a launching pad, especially with MLW, and for them to present that new character on a national and international stage has been phenomenal.
MLW's had a pretty wide array of combinations in the announce booth. I'm curious, did you grow up a wrestling fan? And if so, what's it like having some of these names that you may have grown up listening to calling your work?
It's pretty incredible, you kind of grow out of that, mark phase for lack of a better terminology.
Sure.
But so, it's meeting these guys that you've grown up or working with these guys that you grew up watching, like, becomes like, less and less like a starstruck moment, but it's still always going to be cool to hear old Cornette, call my matches.
I'll say this, MJF isn't out of that stage yet because when he got interviewed by me, he totally marked out. That's
Oh, yeah.
And then he kicked me out of his hotel room. That's how it unfolded.
That sounds a little bit more accurate.
Yeah. What do you make of his fascination with Cody Rhodes? He's a guy who thinks a lot of himself, but then you see him thinking a lot of other people. I mean, obviously he thinks a lot of you and Richard. So, what does that say about Cody?
I don't have a personal relationship with Cody, so I'm kind of just like anybody else on the outside looking in, but Max always has he's always a couple steps ahead of his workmates as far as his thought process and what he's got planned. So if he adores Cody so much, he's probably making the correct moves and doing what he needs to do to position himself exactly where he wants to be. Max is pretty genius in that respect.
So MLW, never say never. You're facing Savio Vega. I love this matchup. Any kind of final words about the show before we go?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, we just touched on me versus Savio Vega, and that is one of several of the incredible matches that's been announced. Even just today, they just announced Richard Holiday taking on Brian Pillman, which you got the two young cats of two stables that have been going at it for the better part of the year. And, that match alone, I messaged Richard Holiday this morning and I said, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Mostly I'm looking forward to Holiday beating the living crap out of Pillman, but nonetheless, that's going to be a great match for everybody to watch, And so you talk about me versus Savio, that's main event level caliber matchup, but that's one of 8 or 9 other matches that have been announced that are in that same class of matchups you don't see every day, matchups you don't see everywhere, matchups you're only going to see in MLW, and matchups that could main event basically any independent wrestling show across the country. So it's a stacked card. So the pressure's on for everybody in that locker room to go out there and kill it.
Yeah, Lawler versus Fatu. You have Jimmy Havoc and L.A. Park. Austin Aries and Ace Austin is one I'm interested in. Ace Austin's been doing great. Teddy Hart against MJF. There's so many intriguing matchups, like you mentioned. Alex, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.